The modern bicycle has come a long, long way from the original safety bicycle, thank goodness. They're now lightweight, fast, reliable and easy to live with and make cycling more accessible for more people. But over the years there have been quite a few product failures. So in this video I picked 6 products that have failed to live up to the hype when they launched. So without further ado, let's dive in. The Speed-X was one of the biggest Kickstarter products of all time that ultimately failed to deliver on the hype surrounding its launch. This was a smart bike that promised big, received unprecedented backing, but ended in the worst way possible. People out of money with no bikes to show for it. And what got people excited with the Leopard launch bike was a state-of-the-art aero carbon frame, full internal cable routing and internal sensors, and a really low price tag of just £1,300 for a Shimano 105 group set. It looked like a vision from the future, and it had a lot of people excited. It raised over $1 million on Kickstarter and reportedly would go on to raise over $10 million. But soon things start to unravel. It's easy to market a new bike on the internet, quite another to actually manufacture it. So bikes weren't delivered and the delays began to kick in. And with each delay came excuses. Quality control, shipping issues, parts shortages, all blamed for the lack of delivery. And when the first reviews came in, well, they weren't very good at all. Shocking, in fact. The bike wasn't much cop, the smart features weren't that smart, the early promise it had shown never really materialised. Things wouldn't improve. A PR disaster by a parent company leading to police investigations and funding then drying up, leaving cyclists around the world out of pocket with no smart bike to ride. And if you want to know more about this Kickstarter success and failure story, there's a great story on Cycling Tips, I'll put a link down below. Nearly 10 years ago, in a time when power meters weren't as commonplace as they are today, Brim Brothers was developing a power meter that was not only affordable, but was mounted to your shoes rather than the bike, making it a true interchangeable power meter. It really was unlike any other power meter, past or present. A sensor plate was sandwiched between the speed plate cleat and shoe, which transmitted power to a compatible ANT+ device. It claimed to be accurate, have a good battery life and be easy to set up. But the product never made it to market. It was postponed several times and eventually the company founders admitted they had run out of time and money and the company was closed down. And that's a real shame because the product looked amazing and it could have been a real alternative to the power meters we have available today. It's not often new group sets come along, so when FSA, or Full Speed Ahead, give the Italian company its full name, announced it would join the party with its first ever group set in 2016, it garnered lots of interest and excitement. And there's a cause to be excited. FSA have been making cranksets for years, as well as rim brakes, handlebars, stems and wheels via its Vision sub-brand. So bringing all their parts together with some shifters and front and rear derailleurs seemed an easy and smart move. Called WE, it was a semi-wireless group set like Shimano's newest Dura-Race and used ANT+ to connect the shifters to the mechs and let the group set easily sync with bike computers. And it's fully customizable as well and had lots of nice details. Early impressions were good. I actually got to ride a late development group set and I was impressed. The shifter rocker paddle was pretty easy to operate and the hood's nicely shaped and ergonomic and the brakes were powerful. It needed refining though. It wasn't as smooth or slick as Shimano or SRAM, who both have a lot more experience developing group sets. And following this early launch, the company is confident for a 2017 delivery with bold talk of 3 pro teams using it the same year. But then it all went a bit quiet. Production was delayed and it finally started hitting the market a couple of years later with some reasonably positive reviews in the press. But pro teams were never spotted riding it. And in the years since, nothing. It's been quiet. And while the group set is technically still available on the company's website and a 12-speed version has been launched and a disc brake option added, it really is the forgotten group set. So that early hype and the company's bold claim it can challenge to win seems misplaced, and the 3 big group set manufacturers are hardly losing any sleep over it. But maybe there's still time, maybe it might actually happen, watch this space. You think Shimano rarely makes mistakes, but it does have a few big bloopers in its archive. And one of the funniest was the development of the dual control mountain bike levers. The concept was quite simple: to make STI row shifters for a mountain bike, brake levers and shifters combined in one piece. Good in theory, but very bad in practice as it turned out. I actually remember using them in the early 2000s when they first came out, and they weren't easy to get on with compared to rapid fire or grip shifters of the time. Now, the biggest issue was shifting gear while braking was near impossible. They were also pretty delicate as well and prone to breaking all too easily, and they were expensive to buy and replace. Which was all bad enough, but to make it even worse, Shimano also introduced rapid rides at the same time to compound the problem. So rapid rides were first shifting from what we were all used to at the time. And it's fair to say it was a disaster, and after some time refusing to back down, Shimano eventually quietly dropped both dual control and rapid rides, thank goodness. It's a good example of an idea being good in theory and possibly moving us forward, but ultimately in the real world it moved us backwards. Shimano's other big flop that never lived up to the hype was Airlines pneumatic shifting. This was way back in the early 90s before electronic shifting and all the smooth tech we take for granted today was introduced. It was hydraulic shifting and developed primarily for downhill mountain bikes of the day, but certainly had potential benefits outside of that small world of downhill racing. The compressed air lines the system used meant you had to strap a tank of gas to the frame. Now, can you imagine doing that today? A bike brand coming along and saying, guys, you're going to strap a tank of gas to your frame. I mean, it's bad enough with batteries and electronics, but a tank of gas, it seemed crazy, but Shimano actually went there. That tank of gas was apparently good for 400 gear changes before it would need recharging, which you do with a track pump. Needless to say, can you imagine, it never caught on. And in 2011, Shimano introduced its first electronic group set, and the rest is history. Although Di2 had failed to catch on in mountain biking, it dominated road and gravel bikes, and really the first step away from the mechanical group sets we had for 100 years before. In the 1990s, carbon fibre was an exciting and futuristic material and used to shape beautiful bikes like the Lotus 108. It was also being used to redefine the humble bicycle wheel, which for the previous century had used metal spokes. The Spinergy Rev-X threw out the old and brought in the future. 8 carbon blade spokes turned the cycling world on its head. But despite apparently being more aero than conventional wheels of the day, they had their drawbacks. People who used them reported they were flexy and they're far from lightweight. But in the eyes of the UCI and its rulebook, they were an accident waiting to happen. And the UCI developed a new impact test and the funky wheels failed, and as such they were outlawed. And they vanished from the pro peloton as quickly as they had arrived. And that's why modern road bikes don't use carbon wheels like we saw back in the 90s. And there we go, 6 products that have failed to live up to the hype. Now, if you want to see some more tech fails, then check this video right here. And don't forget to subscribe by hitting the button just here. But that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all again very soon.